Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Boro Fan TV. I'm James Hutchinson. Usually, this time of year would be previewing the start of a new season. However, we're going to look back on what's been a challenging season in more ways than one. Reviewing the season on tonight's show, we've got Joe Scott and Boro legend Gary Hamilton. Welcome to the show, lads.
Thank you, James. Nice to be back.
Good stuff. Good to have you on here, Gary. Great to have you on as well, Joe. As always, Boro fans, we'd love to hear from you. You get involved in the shows you always do. Share your thoughts with us all tonight as we look back on the season that's ended and we look ahead to the future season, which will be starting in about 5 weeks' time. Before we do that, though, Gary, when we last had you on, we were chatting about some of your old days at the club, and a manager that took charge of you for a short time was Jack Charlton. And since we last spoke, Jack's passed away. Is there any memories you have of your brief time working with Jack at the Boro?
Yeah, I mean, obviously my condolences go out to the Jack and his family and his wife and the grandkids and all that stuff, and his own children. Yeah, I mean, he wasn't there for long. It was a kind of a strange appointment because I think he basically, just because he had that love and passion of Middlesbrough, where he was very successful as his manager in the late 70s and stuff, or mid 70s onwards. He basically come back to help us just get through a period of time to the end of the season. So he was only there like a few months, and to be perfectly honest, Jack was a big character. I mean, he was larger than life, and I think we basically disrupted his fishing trips because I think he had actually just retired and he was doing his fly fishing or whatever fishing he did. So, but he came back and he put all his experience together with us, and he came back to help for 3 months. I mean, and funny enough, after that, he actually went into the international scene kind of big time, where I thought he was winding down and actually going to retire, and then he came back and done an incredible job with the Republic of Ireland. And I mean, no matter what people thought of Jack, he coached and managed and produced some hell of a players in that Republic team. One being my own Mr. Slavin, who's Scottish actually. But there you go. And I think Bernie got a game because he bought a couple of Irish setters and drank maybe a pint of Guinness or something. I don't know. I think that's how he got on that roster. But I mean, sad, very sad to see things like that happen. But I just, again, my condolences go out to his family. But he was a genuinely nice, lovely man. So he really was.
Yeah, good stuff. Great, that, Gary. So, looking back at the season, Joe, we're going to have to do it, I'm afraid. At the start of the season, Tony Pulis apparently sat down before he left the club with Steve Gibson to discuss the way forward for the club. Do you think either Steve Gibson was given some poor advice by Tony Pulis, or do you think he just chose to ignore it and maybe go his own way with things? What do you think, Joe?
It kind of goes both ways, really. You know, obviously, when Pulis got the boots, I think it was obviously going to be a case of who we're going to appoint to take us forward. And obviously, most Boro fans would say that Slavisa Jokanovic was obviously going to be the obvious choice. But at the end of the day, Gibson just decided, you know, just to stay local and sent to Woodgate, as obviously you saw the success of Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard had with first-time managers. I thought that's what he decided to do by appointing Woodgate. So, and we all turned out at the end of the season. It was just wasn't right for him in any way.
I mean, Gary, it was always going to be a little bit of a gamble appointing Jonathan Woodgate, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's evident now, though, if you're a former kind of captain or any kind of a legend, just don't take the manager's job at Middlesbrough because you're not going to be there long. You're going to get canned. I mean, it's a shame, and that there's a bit of pun and fun in that. But who knows? I mean, I just looked at. I seen the financial sheet come out last week, and I seen players' wages, and oh my God, it nearly floored me. I mean, it really did. I mean, so when you're looking at the business side of a model and like you're looking at the football clubs in general, I mean, Steve has to be looking at that. And I mean, as the owner and the guy who's probably putting his hand the deepest in his pockets of what's the best scenario. I don't know what Neil's financial package was to come in and save us and stuff, but he's there now. But was Jonathan the right decision? Obviously not, because we didn't do too well. Would it have been a perfect scenario or matchup or partnership if we'd brought Neil in earlier with Jonathan, where Jonathan could have maybe learnt that. That's just scenarios. You know? I mean, I don't know if that was ever in Steve's radar. It's in hindsight now that I'm saying that, but I feel for him. I mean, Jonathan's a Middlesbrough lad. I truly, truly believe that he wants the football club and the town to do well, because he's born and bred in the place, and many other of us do, and we don't have that same kind of attachment to it. So I felt bad for him, because I spoke to Jonathan personally when we came to Parky's dinner. And I mean, and let's be honest, guys, I mean, the team wasn't doing well, but that young man still turned up at the Beach Road and Easterside Social Club in front of a lot of fans, and tell you, he answered everybody's questions, and you wouldn't this day and age get many managers doing that. And that night showed me his passion for the team. Just a shame it just didn't work out. I truly believe that he'll definitely find his way back in the game somehow.
Yeah. I mean, I know that's one thing that Steve Gibson's looking at, trying to find a role for him within the club still. Do you think, in a way, though, if he wants to become manager, Gary, that he may have to go elsewhere to be a manager if that's what he wants to do? Or do you think he'd be better advised possibly staying at the Boro?
I would stay where he's at, because one, it's where his home's at, and his house and that kind of stuff. I mean, in business and jobs, we all have to move along and move. But with Neil there, and Neil in his 70s and stuff, and probably, I mean, we're not going to give Neil a 10-year contract, are we? I mean, so I think he's going to get that 2-year contract, and if he can stay there and learn from him, I don't know what the setup is. I don't know what the partnership is. I think it'd be hard for Jonathan if he could push back down to the academies, or like the U18s and stuff. I don't know what's still around. I think that would be hard for him mentally to go from the full team, the first team, back down again. Yeah. So if they can financially afford to keep him in that middle spectrum of the U23s, reserves, and first team, I think we may have a manager in the future to where we don't have to go out and find somebody. So It would be an ideal situation. I just don't know what the long-term plan is for the Boro. I really don't.
Yeah. Well, I've got a few people here with their opinions. Obviously, this is what this show's all about. It's about fans' opinions and everybody's opinions. Call sign Alex, thanks for watching, mate. He said Woodgate had plenty of experience, but he's not suited for managing. And Graham McWilliams has also been in touch. His opinion: what's the obsession with Woodgate? I don't want him anywhere near the club after what he's done. And like I say, that's fans' opinions. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. Yeah. I mean, Joe, I mean, for me personally, I just think it was evident very early on that we were going to be in a bit of a relegation battle this season. I remember watching the game away to Birmingham in early October, and to be honest, we were fortunate only to get beat 2-1 that night, and it was a disappointing display. When the team is struggling like that, and you know it's going to be a season of struggle, do you sort of think the manager maybe needs a little bit of help? Was it evident to you that the manager needed help earlier on in the season?
Well, when I looked at earlier on in the season, particularly when we went to Luton, we were promised like fluid attacking football, which obviously we didn't get under Tony Pulis. But obviously with the 3-3 draw, I mean, you know, something like that could happen, you know, where we can actually do well. But obviously we ended up getting beat 1-0 in our first home game of the season by Brentford. And from then on, I think it was just a bit of a topsy-turvy kind of season, so to speak, for Woodgate. You know, it was just one of those things, you know, we've only won 6 games at home all season. Yeah. That, to me, is just not good enough in this league. But obviously, you know, there was a bit of hope, you know, going into just before the season got suspended, you know, with the 1-0 win away at Charlton. And then ever since going into the Swansea game, I think that was the point where the damage was done, and obviously Woodgate left the club from there.
Yeah. I mean, Gary, as a player, when you're involved in a relegation battle and it seems to drag on all through the season and you're down there, what's it like as a player in the changing room at that point?
I mean, that it really does come down to the manager, and I think that's where probably, sadly, Jonathan lacked. I mean, I think if Jonathan looks at his whole career, I don't know how many times he was ever in a dogfight. I mean, especially for the big clubs he played for. So, I mean, maybe he just wasn't used to that as a player. But as a player, you look to your manager. And I don't think if your managers have ever been through them kind of scenarios or situations, it's tough for them to get any kind of message across. But if the players are not together, I mean, there's a drift and there's a big gap and a big wedge that becomes between everybody in the dressing room. And I don't know what was going on, but this player's not wanting to play for the club and all this stuff at the end of the season, to me, was a disgrace. But I mean, maybe it's easy for me to say now, because you could get injured walking out the door. If they're kind of trying to look after their fitness and their well-being, we could get injured just doing anything in normal day life. So, but for Jonathan, it's a tough one. I don't know if he had it in him to, just because of lack of experience of being in relegation battles, and then obviously his staff. I mean, that's the one thing I do think was wrong, was he appointed his own staff, and I don't think that should have been allowed. I think the staff should have been appointed for him with a lot more experience on board.
Yeah. We've got a few other comments coming here now. We've got John Moon, who's been in touch and has just said, where do you think, Joe, we would have finished in the table if the management changes had not been made? Do you think it's a simple case of that the management changed and we stayed up, or do you think Jonathan Woodgate could have kept us up as well?
It's difficult to tell. I think bringing in Warnock with only 8 games left to go, I think was obviously just enough motivation for us to stay up in the end. Because I think, obviously under Woodgate, I think we were looking at going to struggle in the end. And obviously we mentioned about the staff. Obviously, the only one that had real experience on the coaching front was obviously Leo, and that obviously didn't help Woodgate in the slightest. But obviously now with the news coming in that Leo's actually going to be staying at the club, under Warnock, and the help is that Warnock brought on with him, with his lieutenants, Kevin Blackwell and Ronnie Gibson. That's the experience we need in terms of the coaching front. I think it was something that Woodgate clearly lacked, and obviously Warnock, I think it was just a case of Warnock coming in at the right time to keep us in the Championship.
Yeah, I mean, Matthew Groves, thanks for watching, Matthew, regular on the programme. Just said there was not a chance we would have stayed up with the way the teams at the bottom were picking up points at the end of the season. Go on, Gary.
I think I said it earlier in one of the shows prior to Warnock coming in, and I think you guys asked me, or it might have been on another one I was on, maybe on a Twitter thing. But I did say I didn't think we were staying up. No way. I just didn't think we had the togetherness to do it. I didn't think we had a chance in hell, to be honest. And I think bringing Neil in was just the right thing at the right time and the moment that we needed it. We couldn't get a point at home. It was like, thank God we had even games away and at home. That's the thing that just kept us up. And I didn't understand it as well, because I think during this lockdown thing, I don't think it would have made a hell of a difference where you were playing at home or away anyway, because, there's no crowds, there's no atmosphere, there's nothing. So it just goes to show you, we didn't really like playing at the Riverside at all this entire year or last year. We just didn't feel comfortable playing in our own home ground. And I think that needs to kind of be approached and changed. Because we need that place. We need 32,000 plus back in there. Moving us on, because like every crowd, it's like the 12th man. And no, I definitely don't think we would have survived. I think we would have gone down. And then I don't know what have happened from that, because I've been there before and I've watched Sunderland until I die and did have a chuckle at it. But they're still there, and it's hard. It's very, very difficult. Everybody thinks you just drop down and, maybe we need to do this, because I know a lot of fans were saying this could be maybe a good thing. No, we did not want to drop down there. So Neil, and then give him a chance. Let them do. The guys get more experience than most people put together. So give him a chance at the Championship and see what he can do.
Yeah.
As I said again, we've only won like 6 games, at the Riverside all season. I think it's just not good enough in this league. And considering the fact we only won like quite a few away games as well. Only winning 6 games at home. Like I said, we could have really gone down after all that, but luckily enough, we stayed up in the end.
Yeah, no, good point, Joe. David Campbell there, just going back to what we earlier spoke about Pulis offering advice to Gibson. David believes that Gibson chose to ignore it as he knew it was going to cost a lot of money in terms of what he was already paying. And now the contract players have left with better financially to back Warnock. Do you think that was it? It was a case of the timing that Jonathan Woodgate got the job, that a lot of the cards that were dealt to him were against him, Gary?
Yeah, it's like the same situation when Tony came in. When we appointed Tony, I mean, supposedly the books were kind of drained and the money had dried up, and we'd ran out of the money from the EPL, the parachute stuff, and Tony, I mean, who I'm a person, I mean, we're still very, very close. I mean, he was telling me he was actually trying to balance books rather than be a manager, and I don't think you bring people in for that. I thought we hired people for them kind of jobs, and you know, that was a shame, because I've always said I would have liked to see Tony get the money that maybe Karanka got. I mean, because it was funny, Tony went and Karanka got a bit of cash, so it came from somewhere. But yeah, I just think the timing was all wrong. One for Jonathan, I think he kind of got thrown under the bus because he was already there.
Yeah.
But for Jonathan, he's probably individually looking at it going, well, hey, I've got a chance at management and stuff like that. So it's a little bit of a stepping ladder for him. And I mean, he's obviously going to grasp that with two hands, and he did. Didn't work out. It just didn't work out. And that's just sadly part of the game, today's game. And I don't think anybody needs to be bitter over and stuff like that. We've survived. Now we just need to get back on the page with everybody, especially the fans, and look forward to hopefully a successful season going forward with him. With Warnock, we know he's not going to take any shit, lads. No, that's a good thing. Look, he just don't get scared. To me, that was brilliant. There's not many managers around that would do that this day and age in this modern game. When he just told him, no, don't bother coming back. I've cleared it for you. That kind of stuff. To me, that was the first sign that every other player, if you don't want to play for me, then go away. I don't have time for you, and that's how it should be.
Yeah.
That's how it should be.
I mean, what concerns me, Gary, as much as anything last season was how much of a soft touch we appeared as a team, the Boro. And I think it's difficult to prosper in the Championship if you haven't got a bit of steel about you. That's a characteristic you definitely need in a good Championship team. And do you think that's something, obviously, Neil Warnock will address this summer?
No, that's the first. Didn't he say in the first 40 hours? He couldn't believe. He looked around the dressing room and he didn't think there was one single leader. And I know as a human being, if I went into any sporting entity and I walked around my dressing room and didn't see a leader of some capacity, excuse me, you would be really concerned. And he was really concerned about that. Now, on the outside looking in, I thought maybe Clayton was a bit of a leader. I mean, I just don't know all these players personally and stuff like that. I always thought George was a bit of a leader. But your leaders are people who really step up to the plate when the chips are down. Everybody in a sunny day and when you're top of the league or you're in a playoff spot, everybody could be a leader and shout and stuff like that. It's when the chips are down is when you really have to look around and say, okay, who's going to drag everybody along to make sure that we are on the same page and we want to win together. And obviously there was a massive lack of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know you mentioned there about Adam Clayton. He's one of the players that's moved on from the club. He gives 6 years good service to the club, and I think he was probably at his most productive in his first 2 years. But like you say, they were 2 good years for the club when they were pushing for a promotion then.
Oh, it's always easy then. Yeah. It's very easy to do it then. It's when the chips are down, when you look around your dressing room, you can tell who's prepared to go and want to go out and work and stuff like that and want to win for the cause. And there's always a cause. I mean, our cause here over the last couple of months was survival. So nobody can tell me there wasn't a cause on hand. There really was a massive cause, financially, embarrassmentally, anything. You can put it any way you want. I mean, Middlesbrough Football Club should not be back in that league. And that's just like how I see it. But I think everybody else looks at it that way as well.
Yeah. I mean, Joe, obviously, I think Boro fans were sort of prepared for a season of transition last season. But do you think Boro fans were prepared for a relegation battle?
I think some Boro fans were probably expecting, obviously, like myself included, but probably expecting a mid-table finish or a top half finish. But I think there's the other half that we expected we're going to end up in a relegation battle, and then sadly that's what it came to, you know. But obviously, most fans were typical of quite critical of, you know, Jonathan Woodgate. Obviously, before the season had barely begun, you know, obviously because they wanted a more high-profile manager, and then obviously when he came, you know. But it was obviously, you know, we were going to be in for a tough season, but I didn't expect it to be that sort of tough. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You might know this lad here, Gary, Craig Hutchinson, who's and talking about fans' expectations and managing them. Craig said there we finished 17 points off a playoff place last season after a horrific campaign. He's sure that Neil Warnock can get us towards the top 7, top 6 next season, no bother. But again, like you say, it's about managing expectations. It's still a big ask to go from where we've been to pushing into the playoffs, isn't it?
But it's amazing how quickly things can change. I mean, that one person can turn things around like in a heartbeat. And I think he's probably already put his list of players that he wants to go get and that kind of stuff. So now it's no excuses for Neil now when we kick off again, because hopefully we'll see a few new faces come in, because we've seen a few go. And then it's Neil Warnock's team from now on. So hopefully Neil relies on all his experience and pulls some stuff out of his backside and stuff like that. But why shouldn't we be pushing for in the top 8, where you're just a couple of spots away from a playoff spot? I mean, I think the goals have to be aimed as high as we possibly can, because you don't want to settle for that. We don't want to be settling for, we're just happy to be in the 15th through 18th position. We're not going to go down because we can go away to Spain for the week and have a few beers and stuff like that. No, it's not about that. The game's not about that anymore. It's about pushing on and wanting to be successful and bring success back to the town. And I mean, I've known Craig a long time, and he's not far short of it. Is that going to be easy? No. I mean, it's not. But I'll guarantee you, players would rather play in that top half of the league, going for something, than worried about what they've just gone through the last couple of months. I mean, that's just for facts.
Yeah. Oh, good point, Gary. Yeah, thanks for the question, Craig. Chris Sykes has come up with a question here about an experienced manager is what everybody needed last season to help them through the transition period, not a newbie manager. And I think we've alluded to that it was difficult at Woodgate in the circumstances. Joe, in terms of the players that played last season, is there anybody that sort of emerged with any credit for you or any bright spots from the season?
Well, obviously, two have come to mind in terms of the season, and that is Ashley Fletcher and Paddy McNair, because I think Paddy, first of all, I think Woodgate realises one of the many things that Woodgate got right was getting right on Paddy McNair's natural position, which is obviously in the holding midfield role. And then with Fletcher, he sort of like took off, because I think the loan spell he had at Sunderland, he had the previous campaign, certainly helped him a lot in terms of his confidence of getting in front of goal. And yeah, like I say, in fair to me, they were the two bright spots, I think, this season, both Ashley Fletcher and Paddy McNair.
Mm-hmm. And Gary, in terms of the football coming back, how successful do you think it's been, like the Project Restart, as they've called it over here, for the EFL and the Premier League? How would you mark it down as being a success or not?
You don't really want to know my opinion on it. So I haven't. I've actually not watched one full game yet.
Right.
I just can't get into it. It just is very difficult for me to watch. I mean, I really wanted to watch the Brentford game last night because I thought that was going to be a really, really interesting game. No, I ended up not watching. I just watched the highlights. I think it's just been different. I think there was an old manager, I can't remember who it was, Jock Stein or something that says football is not the same without the fans. And my God, has that become so evident right now. Obviously, the games were played and they've managed to get through the seasons, which is ultimately was the goal. But I think we all know it was all financially driven. I mean, we had to get the games in, or the clubs were going to owe Sky or whoever the sport of Sky TV all the money back. So they've managed to get it done. How long they can go without the fans coming in, I really don't know. It's going to be very difficult. Now, I'm heading back to America next week, and it's the same over there. I mean, it's a bad situation worldwide, but at least the fans are getting to watch the games, and that's good. I mean, because I think we've missed them. But personally, my own self, like FA Cup Saturday, I sat outside and had a beer and just watched to see if I could see the dolphins and the water and stuff like that. I've not really watched it. Middlesbrough game I watched. I've more or less done all the highlights rather than the full games. I find them boring.
As a player then, Gary, how would you have managed playing in this situation where there's no fans in the stadium? Would that have affected your performance?
They would have had to have the biggest beat machine in the world, because, oh my God. I mean, you'd have heard a lot of me, and it would have been a lot of bad words. It would have been. I'd probably been fined every week or something like that. Oh, I would have. That was just to my own players. That wasn't even to the opposition. Yeah. So, I think it would have been hard. I don't know. I think you just go out and play. I mean, you definitely go out and play, especially when you know it's one of the. When the first team played the reserves, that's more of a walkthroughs and lightheartedness and stuff. But these are games. I mean, these are real games. Try to keep you up, meaning a lot of money, financial gain, loss of financial status if you don't win. So they were the real deal. But it's just a different side, and I'm hoping this stuff doesn't go on for too much longer.
Yeah. And Joe, as a fan, how's it been for you following them, say, like on the iFollow app and stuff like that? What's it been like as a fan watching the end of the season?
It works 6 and 2 threes, really. Obviously, it's disappointing that you can't go to the game in person, nowadays because of the current circumstances at the moment. But obviously, you get a good deal watching them on the iFollow. You get your season ticket to act as like going into the last few games, you just watch the games on there for free. Which I hope probably for the first couple of weeks of the upcoming season, the first couple of weeks, we probably be the same, but it is strange, not being there, but it's obviously good that you get to watch the games from the comfort of your own home, basically, pretty much.
I mean, it's probably fair to say, Gary, without the football restarting, if the season had been null and voided and nothing more had been played, it's probably fair to say Jonathan Woodgate would still be the Boro manager, wouldn't he?
Yeah, no, without a doubt, I definitely think that, and I think it goes to show you how important it is a day out, just family wise and stuff. How important it really is that people have missed that. And I know it can be expensive for families and stuff to go to the game, but a game of football with your family is a whole day out. So it is. I mean, so it's been desperately missed, and I think the longer it goes on, the harder it's going to become for individuals and families as well. We'll all be pulling our hair out and stuff like that. But I'm just, it's good that it's back, and it's good that it's getting played, and it's good that they have plans in action, and they've got plans that they're following through with to make sure that the games get played and stuff like that. Yeah. Now, we all know it's not the same. I mean, so there's no need for me to harp on about it. I mean, I'll eventually get back to America and go back to watching all the games and stuff like that.
Yeah. A couple of questions here for you, Gary. You've got one from Chris Sykes. Have you ever thought about being Gibbo's number 2? And secondly, we've got Craig Cameron Close, who said, "I am, or would you recommend any Houston Dynamo players to the Boro?"
Well, I can answer the Dynamo one. They've actually changed their roster quite a lot, and I've been here that long. I don't even know who's playing anymore. I only know half of them. So I'd have to go back and actually catch up with the first team again. Gibbo's number 2. I don't think I have enough money to be Gibbo's number 2. I don't know that. I don't understand the question. Is it to be like, what's his name, Neil's job? I'll take that job. Yeah. So, I'd definitely take that job. That was like the easiest one in the club, to be honest. Didn't seem to do much. But no. They leave the business side to the actual business people. But as the Dynamo, there's a lot of talent in America. I mean, there really, really is. And I think it gets overlooked. And the good thing about America right now as well is that they have the USL Pro League, which is basically like MLS Division 2. There is a lot of good talent. And I'm hoping that, I mean, it'd be it's a haven for not the big clubs. The big clubs already know who the players are. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of little diamonds under the rocks over there. And I mean, if anybody needed any help, then I'd be here to help them. That's for sure. But yeah, there's talent, especially young as well. And kids now, it seems to be like even kids in my own club. All of a sudden, everybody has these multiple passports. I don't know where all that came from. When I first went over there, everybody didn't have 2 passports, but now they do. But which helps. And yeah, I'm about to start helping one of the other MLS teams as well. So I don't know how that'll pan out. I might get sacked from one of them. So, but the other team I'm going to help is more for scouting. So, which I like to do. So.
Good stuff. Before we move on about Neil Warnock, Gary, as a manager, do you think his style of management and motivation would have got the best out of you, or it wouldn't have affected how you operate in any sort of way?
No. It didn't matter who was managing me. I played because I loved the game. Obviously, the managements give you their own individual aspects of what they want you to play like, and you had to fit into the team kind of aspect, the team shape. Fortunately enough, that I probably fitted into most of them just because I was that kind of person that most teams needed. So, I mean, I have to really change much. I remember when we bought Mark Brennan, and I think we were playing Norwich at home, and I did something. I think I made a tackle and I done the ball, and then I tried to make a pass with the outside of my foot, and went wide, and I think it got there at half time. Bruce lost it with me, and he said to me, "What are you doing?" And I went, "Well, what?" And he went, "No, you just win the ball and then you give it to him." And I says, "But I can do what you can do." And he went, "No, we don't pay you for that." And that's kind of when you get told them kind of things. It was like, "Oh, okay, I'll just do your job." So it was. But imagine saying that to a player today.
Yeah,
they would run off crying, and the manager would be sacked probably.
Yeah. Joe, obviously the season's finished. We ended up finishing in 17th position. But I think it's a massive relief that we're not involved in any sort of courtroom squabbles with the likes of the Sheffield Wednesday, Wigan scenarios, isn't it? We can just plan ahead for being in the Championship next season, can't we?
Yeah, obviously it's a shame of what happened to Wigan, really, under the circumstances that they had done. But obviously, like Sheffield Wednesday, they're going to start this season with minus 12 points. But judging by the looks of it, I think Derby County are going to be let off the hook by the looks of things, which is obviously typical of the EFL. But we have to live with it. We have to start fresh. And hopefully we see what the new season, takes us.
Yeah. I mean, I know a couple of minutes ago, Gary, we were mentioning about there maybe being a bit of a soft side of the Boro. But in fairness, since Warnock's come in, the last 2 away games, they've gone behind at Reading and Sheffield Wednesday and come back to win both games. So there's obviously a little bit of resilience there. And again, that's another important quality that they'll need next season, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they'll need that. But the thing is, they're going to need it for more than just 8 games. Yeah. I mean, they're going to need it for their entire season. Can they do it? I mean, everything's in small steps. Can we move it from 8 games to 16 games, which takes you, closer to the halfway mark? But I think Neil will have that covered to where I think the first case team scenario would be stop being such an easy pushover, and secondly, be a force when you play at home, especially when we have our fans inside the stadium. I think that's 2 big points that I think Neil will get that across to the lads, and whoever's new, then hey, they'll be welcome to the Boro. And who have you ever said this ever heard say they've left the Boro and didn't like the area? So they know they're coming to a good place, but with very passionate fans. But I think Neil's got most of that side covered. No, I mean, I don't see Neil being there longer than like 2, max 3 seasons, even being successful, even if a promotion comes along with it and stuff like that. Because I just think the game moves on, and I think Neil will probably be 75 by then anyway. So I mean, who knows if he wants to do it then? Well, I was impressed when I seen him on his bike riding wherever he was riding. I was very impressed with that. That just goes to show. That showed me the character of the man, just in general. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Normally the manager would have a Mercedes or a big car, but Neil Warnock on his bike, absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Made it for me. I just thought, that's the guy I would want to play for.
Yeah. Good stuff. It's a good recommendation, that, Gary. I mean, Joe, there's a lot of things focusing now on recruitment and who's coming in and who might be going. Damon LaRoche, thanks for watching. Damon, regularly in touch with us on the show. He's saying about Paddy McNair could be off to Celtic for $5 million. And Craig Hutchinson's response to that was, I'll drive him there if he needs a lift. So there's obviously people that are saying about what they're going to, who's going to come in, who's going to go out. Do you think McNair could be one of the players where we could get some money for it? Because I don't think there's many saleable assets really in the Boro squad at the moment. And he could be one that we could get a bit of money for.
Yeah, it could be. Obviously, we found out about Paddy McNair's link to Celtic just today. And obviously, I think that's only going to happen if Celtic find their bid for James McCarthy from Crystal Palace obviously getting stalled. So if that stalls, then obviously that'll open the door for them to get Paddy. So in terms of, coming in, obviously Grant Hall, we've obviously got him from QPR. It's obviously one of the centre-backs that we definitely got sorted. And then obviously the links going on all over the place. We just heard about Armand Nondouye from who was released by Blackpool, I think, after this season. He's been coming to when he moved to us. And we obviously know about Jordan Jones as well from Rangers. But I think going back to who would be sell on for the money, I know Dale Fry has been mentioned an awful lot recently. He's been linked with a lot of Premier League clubs. The same can be said as well for possibly Jed Spence as well. There'll be a few Premier League clubs going in after him. So I think they're the 2 players. Obviously, are going to be have big money tags on them, and obviously with Britta Sombalonga on his last year of his contract, we'll have to see whereabouts he's going to end up going. my personal opinion on the summer longer, hopefully he signs some sort of extension or something, because he's going to be a key asset to us, I think, for the upcoming season ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dale Fry's name's cropping up a fair bit there, Joe, about possibly being involved in a...
I believe with the young man Damien just said there. I mean, I don't know what the rumours are, but no, I had a couple with Gibson maybe coming back on some kind of a loan deal as well. I don't think that would be a bad thing. I think the fans would welcome him back, because he's had a torrid time at Burnley, really.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a football player, you want to play. I mean, the money and everything's great and stuff, but you still want to be on that field and playing. But I was impressive. You ran us through the whole Middlesbrough Football Club roster there, with who's coming and going there. That was brilliant. You're better than Twitter.
I mean, Gary, one of the things we've noticed in the squad last season with the Boro, at the end of the season, if you take George Friend out and Marvin Johnson, who have been offered contracts but maybe leaving the club, after that, there's only 3 players that are over 25 years age. Does the squad need more experience? I mean, you're a perfect person to ask in a way, because when you go back to 86, I know it wasn't by choice in a way, it was what we had. But that squad did really well without experienced players. Or do you think the game...
No, I honestly don't think... I mean, the experience thing, I think, lies in the managerial jobs. You know what I mean? The staffing and the managers. The players at 25, I'm sorry. I mean, if they're not good enough by 25, that's not young anymore. Not in this game. It's not young. I know it's young enough and you can get big, but no, I don't think you need to go get the old heads and stuff. I've got this outlook now, especially like living in the States for so many years, when we've brought over the Gerrards and Lampards and stuff. That's just a payday. And you don't have to say that in America. I think it's the same in Britain as well. In the UK, some of it's just a payday. Yeah, they do bring experience, but in all of my experience, anytime we brought somebody in that was supposed to be experienced, they didn't do crap. I mean, they sat in the sauna and sat in the treatment table, and I say give not the academy, not the reserves, but if they're young enough and they're good enough, play them, and then give them some sort of kind of chance of proving themselves, to where if they're good enough, we'll know if they can make it. Yeah. I mean, and then McNair thing, that's only come up with Celtic because Rangers bought 2. I'm in Glasgow. That's only come up because Rangers bought 2 players today or yesterday. So right. Celtic better make an announcement. So that's what they've done. So they are. But I would hate to see them. I would hate to see them go. I know Craig said he would drive them up here and stuff. But I think when you look at him now, I think he's just coming on song. I mean, I think he's actually just coming along to where sometimes it takes a while for a player to believe where he belongs. And Fletcher, I really like. What's the deal with the Roberts kid? Is he on loan from Celtic?
He was on loan from City. So
City, all right, because he went, all right, yeah.
Yeah, so personally speaking, I would be happy to have Patrick Roberts back on loan, Gary.
Yeah.
Especially in view of his injury record.
I don't think he's
commit to a signing.
I don't think he's proved himself enough, but in the glimpses I've seen him, glimpses, if you were going to take him on a year's loan, you would have to sit down with him and say, we need a lot more out here. If we're playing 50 games, you got to give at least 30 of them to take that risk on him. But I liked him. I thought he was that kind of individual where he could unlock doors, and especially in that final third, I actually like the look of him.
I mean, bearing in mind you've gone through the full squad there, Joe. Where do you think, what areas do we most need to strengthen for you next season?
But we could probably do with another centre back to start with. Maybe another midfielder to join the ranks as well, and quite possibly another striker. So I think that's the 3 areas that we need cover for, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Gary, obviously this week it's come out that offers have been made to George Friend and Marvin Johnson, but on reduced terms. Now, obviously you can't speak for them, but as a player yourself, seeing George's circumstances, he's been at the club now for a lot of years. I think he's been at the club for 7 years. He's been offered a reduced contract offer. Do you think he'll be thinking, well, yeah, I'll take it on. It offers me a bit more security for a little bit longer, or do you think he might see it as a little bit of a kick in the teeth that he's been offered reduced terms?
Well, he wants to come up and play in Scotland then, because all the Scottish players are getting told they have to take reduced wages. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it in Scotland here. And it's incredible. Like, but players, especially like, I mean, I know there's no comparison, but like Aberdeen players are on now half their wages of last year, and this was commitments that were made to players. If I was George personally, I'd take the Middlesbrough deal. because I just seen what he made last week. So I've seen that in writing. And again, it goes down to, I mean, and this is a sad thing. How much is enough for you to kind of want to play the game that you love? And I don't know. I think, because I think George could go back in and do a job over the course of the season. I don't know about being a regular and stuff like that, but he could definitely come in and do a job and maybe show his experience when it's needed and stuff like that. So, but like somebody just said there, I think that the team needs strengthening right down the middle. So, yeah, that's what I think. And I think he's already mentioned that, Neil, anyway, and he'll have a few players up his sleeve, so he will.
I mean, can you see this one coming off, Joe? David Jackson said Stewie Downing's out of contract at Blackburn. Do you think he could come back for a third spell at the club, Joe?
Never say never, Obviously, we'll probably welcome back Stuart back with open arms, but it depends, obviously, whether he wants to be in the club on reduced wages or not. That's going to be the only thing regarding Downing.
Yeah.
And saying about Stuart, when just before Stuart left us, I can't remember who it was, but they put him in like a kind of a semi-holding midfield role.
Yeah.
Where he didn't have to do all the graft. And I mean, and if you put a couple of people, like the younger ones, in front of him, I'm telling you, I would like to see it. I mean, I don't think we would get the 40 plus out of Stuart, but he would definitely offer us something. That would be me contradicting myself and saying the old guy don't bring in an experience, but you're bringing somebody in who wants this town to do well.
Yeah.
No matter what he does, and he loves playing for Middlesbrough Football Club, so nobody's going to argue that. Just as at the right, I'm not saying bring him in to play every single game, but I don't know. But I don't think it'd be that bad of a thing.
Yeah. Oh, Damon wouldn't be too happy. Damon's been in touch. You noticed Stuart Down. We've been there and done that. And again,
I mean, I can see where he's coming from.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not saying long term. I'm not saying give him a 5-year contract. I'm just saying bring him in for the season, and he gets told he's going to be a squad player, and you're not getting your money that you want, and then see if he really loves the town or not. If you know what I mean, and if you want to play.
Yeah.
Because he's coming down. I mean, he's now whittling down. He has to be whittling down to the end of his career now. I don't think he would mind finishing it off there, but I mean, I would hate to see him come in and think he's going on holiday, and I don't think he's like that anyway. So, but I can see where he's coming from.
Yeah. David Towers, thanks for watching, David. Great point from David here, Joe. We've lacked balance and pace for many seasons, and it just showed what pace can do in some games this season with Spence and Coulson as part of the side. Now, I know we spoke before we came on air tonight, Joe, about Spence and Coulson, and I think they're probably better suited to playing attacking going forward rather than being used in a defensive role. But pace is something that's been lacking in the Boro side for a number of years, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I think Spence and Coulson obviously have been a bright spark when it comes to pace. And obviously we got the likes of Tavernier who can produce pace, but only when he feels like it. So I think, Coulson, if probably say going to this season, obviously, if Johnson does decide to stay, will he get a decent run in the team? Is the only question. And obviously, we got Mark Ball that'll come back from Blackpool. So there's going to be a lot of competition for that left wing back position. But I think if Coulson does get that opportunity, and we just then it'll be the pace that we so vitally needed, which we hadn't had obviously for quite some time.
And just with regards to next season, Gary, usually pre-season's about 7 weeks. Now this year, when the Boro come back, it'll be 5 weeks before the start of the season. Do you think in any sort of way it'll affect the squad's fitness, or do you think because we've only just finished, they'll be all right?
No, I think the players will probably, because during that lockdown when they had to train themselves, I mean, I know as an individual myself, I mean, you obviously have to get it done because it's your job. But I think they would appreciate being back as a group and back as a squad and back at training together, that they'll be looking forward to it and looking forward to getting back, because I think this is the longest period of time I think any professional football players have ever had off, unless they were like injured and out long term. So no, I think I don't think it'll be a massive burden on anybody, because I think they'll keep themselves in shape and stuff. I mean, just on a funny side, I mean, you look at the Fulham players coming out of the hotel this morning, all sober and stuff, and I'm like, what's wrong with them? You know what I mean? It's like, really? And the guy was going home to babysit his kids and stuff, and I was like, oh my God, the game has changed. You wouldn't have seen me for 2 weeks.
I was going to say, that wasn't the promotion celebrations you had, mate,
really,
was it?
but it just goes to show, that's what I'm saying, just to follow up on what I'm saying, is the approach and the outlook is so different now, to where now I don't think it'll be any kind of hurdle for the professional football players in today's age at the stage that I think they'll look forward to getting back, because I think they've all probably missed the game tremendously, like the fans have.
Yeah. And just another thing before we move on about the squads and we wrap things up tonight, Joe. David Smith's been in touch. He's just said about, do we need a backup goalkeeper, or do we need to bring a new keeper into the club? What's your views on that one, Joe?
It's a difficult one, because I think, we obviously we saw, some flaws from both Stojanovic and Pearce ever since, from the restart of the season. So there's been a lot of talking about bringing in another goalkeeper. I know obviously, Dylan Phillips from Charlton's been mentioned, and Alex Bass from Portsmouth's been mentioned. So it can be pretty difficult to tell if we do need another goalkeeper. But, with the last couple of weeks, to going into the season, if there's ever a time for Neil Warnock to bring in the goalkeeper, I think I'd bring one in probably sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap things up, I'm just going to ask you both, what do you think are a realistic target for Boro to have for next season in terms of where they finish in the league? What do you think they should be aiming for? So come to you first with that, Gary. What do you think Boro should be aiming for realistically next season?
Win the league by Christmas Day. And then we'll all be happy. and then we can all have another long vacation. Playoff spot. You know what I mean? And then just keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully in that playoff spot, my dad and I spoke about it yesterday, just Fulham had their name on the playoff spot because they just hit the right form at the right time, and they seem to just have that little bit of luck on their side in their last few games as well. So I'm saying playoff spot, and hey, I'd love to be in the top two.
Yeah,
I wouldn't like to make that predicament right now without seeing who's coming in. I mean, I think we need to see who's coming in and who actually does eventually leave, and see what that final squad looks like, and then see how it gels together. And let's see if Mr. Warnock actually does have a magic wand, and then we go from there. But I would be definitely happy with a playoff spot. I really would.
Yeah, we've got quite a few optimistic Boro fans. Yeah, top two from David Kay. Lee Handley said we'll finish fourth. Damon LaRoche has said they're top 10. And like I say, Joe, it's like Cardiff got in the playoffs this season. They played at the Boro at the end of this season. They weren't anything spectacular, but they looked organised, they looked strong. Yeah. And they've been a playoff around that area all season. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that we could be in the top 6 next season, is it?
Yeah, anything could be possible. I think the playoffs could certainly be reachable, and obviously the top 2 could be reachable if we can perform exceptionally well. But I think from my personal opinion, either a top half or somewhere along mid-table, either top half or playoffs, in fact, would be better suited for me if Warnock plays the cards right this season. So playoffs or top half for me.
Good stuff.
If Neil gets this squad at like a tough team to beat, and especially at the Riverside, then there's no ifs or buts that we shouldn't be in the playoff spot. If we can get them to do that, and then also sneak, which he seems to have an act of the away games, if he can continue the away game thing, then we could be laughing. We've just got to become confident and self-assured in front of our own fans at home, and because we've got the mix of. I mean, we're geared for the next level. It's just whether we can become a fortress again, and that's what it takes. If you look at all the teams in the top 6, let's say the top 7 in the Championship League, they were tough to beat. They made themselves just tough to beat, and that's what you have to become. You just got to become a squad that's tough to beat, and everybody's got to buy into it.
Yeah, great stuff. Lads, absolutely fantastic to have you both on the show again tonight. Thanks for joining us, Joe. Thanks as always, Gary. Been a pleasure having you both on.
Pleasure.
Great stuff, lads. Thanks to everybody watching out there and contributing to the show tonight and throughout the season. You make this show, Boro fans, so thank you very much. If you enjoy what we do, please like and subscribe to Boro Fan TV. Until next time, from myself, from Joe, and from Gary, good night and up the Boro.
Up the Boro.
Up the Boro.